Welcome to another episode of the Roost Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Pitcher. Today's guest we have on is Janine Faber. She is a nutrition communications consultant and dietitian for the Kentucky Beef Council. You'll see a variety of different guests like this coming on. We most recently had the Dairy Alliance. We're going to have someone on from the Pork Board coming on as well. Just giving you guys some more insight about where our food comes from, how it's being developed now in the current time with the current technologies, and what are some of the benefits and possible myths that we have to debunk in these certain spectrums. But welcome, Janine. Really appreciate you for taking the time to come on today.
I appreciate you taking the time to invite me. I appreciate the invitation and the networking as well. Always appreciative to reach and meet another dietitian.
Absolutely. I always think, the more you can grow your network and connect with any level of dietitian, it doesn't even matter if it's in sports. There's always something you can learn from them and add to your toolbox at the end of the day.
Agreed, definitely.
So could you give the audience, what is Janine's roots?
Gosh, that's always a good question. I grew up, I was born outside of DC, and then we moved to Chicago when I was about 5 years older outside of Chicago. But throughout my life, I'd always spend time with my grandparents, and I just listened to Ethan's interview with you as well. So I feel like grandparents seem to be a very big topic with us. But my grandfather, so they lived outside of Philadelphia. They lived in a smaller town, Strasburg. And my grandfather was a family physician, primarily working with Amish community. And so when I was in third grade, I wanted to be a children's book author. And so I was writing short stories. My grandfather was writing short stories about his practice and his experiences. And so we would share our stories with each other. And I just loved reading, I guess, about his experiences, his relationships he's built with his patients, the care that he was providing. And at that time, just what he was doing, going out above and beyond and getting to know multiple generations in a family, and just the care and the education he was providing. And that's what really got me interested in the healthcare field. And then I was able to take a nutrition class in high school, and that really furthered my interest in nutrition and how much what we can do and put in our bodies really can benefit us and help prevent disease. And then the education component as well, being able to take care of other people and by helping to educate them about the food that they put into their bodies. And so I only applied to colleges for dietetics. So I basically knew going into college that I was interested in dietetics, and just happened to be, there was a career fair in high school where there just happened to be one dietitian that was there. It's working in the hospital setting. And so I really didn't know what other areas or avenues you could be as a dietitian, but it was intriguing to me. And so I went to Miami of Ohio for undergrad. And one of the things that we did or were able to do before we could graduate was do our capstone project. And we had to shadow or work with a dietitian for at least 3 weeks. And you could do this over the summer. So being from outside of Chicago, I looked at an alternative side of dietetics, or kind of a different side. And I contacted a dietitian at Quaker Oats in Chicago just to see a business side of dietetics. And because I started kind of feeling more interested in like the marketing side or just kind of business opportunities within dietetics. And so working with her gave me a new idea and the role of what dietitians can do with food brands, working with nutrition labels. And she was specifically working with college and universities and their food service departments, trying to get quicker products into their cafeterias and their dining halls. That's what I'm looking for, their dining halls. So that just gave me and opened my eyes to like, there's so many opportunities for dietitians, and there's just a world of different things that we could do with our skill set. So that helped. And then if I could do my undergrad over again, I would have taken more business classes. I feel like that is where, in any dietetics role, I feel like business classes would be beneficial. Just the marketing, because you're always marketing yourself, right? And you have your own brand. So I feel like that's where I would definitely add business classes to my courses if I could do it again. And then I did my internship through Virginia Tech outside of DC. And so I had just moved in to my apartment. I was fortunate to be able to go somewhere for my internship. But I liked the internship because they had a longer community rotation, and also being in that area was there an opportunity to work with IFIC, the International Food Information Council, or FDA or USDA or the Dairy Council. And so one of the things we did clinical first. Unfortunately, this was our first week of clinical rotation was when September 11th occurred. So I was out in the DC area, first week of on-site working with the dietitians, and experienced the tragedy of 9/11. And I feel like that brought us together closer as interns, and made for a very unique experience during an internship. And being also in the DC area, where some of the dietitians I was with were working in hospitals in the DC area and having to help out even more. So that's a whole nother thing.
That's a whole other story.
Just so much. And, your internship is already a lot, but then having this other additional experience on top of it. But one of the things that I asked for in my internship was, could I do this opportunity? Could I do an opportunity with USDA or FDA or the Dairy Council or something that we hadn't really done, they hadn't done before? And that was the first chance that I was able to work with the Dairy Council and doing a media experience. So in 2001, doing a media experience and having that opportunity with talking, I think it was a Christian radio station, talking about having dairy products for breakfast and healthy dairy products. Or different ways you can create different recipes using low-fat dairy items and yogurts and milk, and having that cassette tape of my interview.
Ooh, cassette tape! You're taking me back.
That's right. And so, but that was such a unique experience. So I always tell people, I'm like, no matter where you are in your journey, ask for what you're interested in. What's the worst that people can say? The worst that people can say is no. So if I didn't ask for that to work with the Dairy Council or USA, FDA or EFIC, I wouldn't have had that experience. I wouldn't have had that media experience that I feel like really helped get me to a future job, one of my dream jobs. And honestly, I would have felt, if you would have said that, Janine would have gotten into doing media interviews, I would have been like, no way. Younger Janine would not have believed that. And
I was the same way. I was this shy kid that didn't want to talk, was scared to speak in front of people. I had a father and a grandfather who could talk to literally anybody. Like, you could be in a grocery store and some person's in line, and then now it's a 20-minute conversation. I've kind of reversed that role now. Like, I'm very open to having those discussions and like being in groups of people and talking to people. But if you met me early on too, like, you were like, there's no way.
Exactly. Well, and it's like, but then you had an opportunity, and it's just kind of, you continue to grow and push yourself. And that's the exciting part, is when we continue to grow and push ourselves, we can see all these other skill sets that we can have. So I feel like that, again, just go for it. Just try something that's out of your comfort zone that helps us really push us and to grow, or be open to it, at least not always shy away from it, be open to it. And then going back, and then I moved back to the Cincinnati area too. So my boyfriend was here, so I did my internship for a year and then moved back here. And then I did my grad school work at the University of Cincinnati, and I got a Master's of Education in Health Promotion because I felt like that linked really well with dietetics. And I did that in the evenings while I worked full time. And so my first job was a traveling dietitian. So are you familiar with a traveling dietitian? I hadn't even heard of that before.
I've heard of traveling nurses. I had a couple of friends that used to date traveling nurses, and the big thing they would tell me, they're like, this is the best job because I can work 6 months, make my full year's salary and more, and I can keep working if I want, or I can have a little bit of extra time off of my family just because of the luxury that kind of allows you. But you also are away for a certain period of time, depending on where you have to travel to. So it depends on what kind of spectrum you're in your life, whether you could do it or not.
Exactly. I feel like there's some people that absolutely love it because they can try a whole nother city or town or state that they've never been into. luckily this one it was just a few months, and it was just north of Cincinnati, so up in the Springfield area. So between Columbus and Dayton, there was a dietitian that was going out for surgery leave. And so it just gave me an opportunity to get into the clinical setting in a smaller hospital setting. And so I was able to do that. But I agree, I'm like, that was enough for me to live in a hotel for the week for a couple months. At least it made me help to study for the RD exam, because I'm in the hotel. There's nothing much else to do.
Study and get it over with. I can't tell you how
Just
relieved when that exam was over.
Exactly.
Just like
I'll take it as soon as I can.
Lifted off your shoulders was tremendous.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was just like, let's just get it over with. And then this opportunity through the Greater Cincinnati Dietetic Association, there was an opportunity with Kroger. And so having that interest of doing non-traditional dietetics and getting into retail was of interest to me. And so when that opportunity presented itself, and being in the Cincinnati area where their headquarters of Kroger is, I definitely jumped at that opportunity. And so worked at Kroger for about 2 years and answered consumer questions about over email or over the phone, if they had any questions about preparation or label reading or ingredients, or gluten, of course, was a big one, or any allergies. So you always heard kind of what they were most interested in learning about. That gave me a greater idea and understanding of consumers and how the questions that they're experiencing or having in the store where they're making their purchase decisions. And then but I really was itching to kind of get out and talk to people face to face as opposed to over email and phone. It's so different.
It's a huge difference. I mean, you can't substitute that face-to-face interaction, being in groups of people all together. I know we are shifting a lot towards social media, FaceTime, texting is a lot of our main modes of communication, but there's just that feeling and that presence, and just the being able to see other people's body language, whether it's happy, sad, laughing, emotional, that you're not going to be able to replicate through some of these other platforms.
Exactly. So that kind of led me to this position I heard about with Meijer. So Meijer's based in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they're located in Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. And so they were looking to create their healthy living program. So starting to hire dietitians. And so I was the second dietitian hired, and I covered Ohio and Kentucky as a healthy living expert. And so I did media. So that cassette tape from my internship helped me to get this position, because it was one media experience more than anyone else had that I was interviewing the position. So you never know what you can bring to the position sometimes. And so those skills or those experiences can really benefit for what you can bring to this new role. And then, so I did media, radio and TV. I did presentations, exhibits, cooking demonstrations. Like, again, I would not have thought myself being up in front of presenting to a large group of people, but I loved it. I love that interaction, that face-to-face interaction, working and connecting and networking with other dietitians, working together and helping to do diabetes food tours with a diabetes coalition. So it was just a really nice, I love that experience, and connecting and networking with other health professionals. And then in 2017, switched over to, after about 12 years with Meijer, decided to do more consulting role. And so that's where I am now, but still being incredibly active in other health professional organizations. And the one that I'm more active in is the Nutrition Entrepreneurs Dietetic Practice Group. Again, kind of going back to what I missed out on undergrad and not going to those business classes. I feel like that's where Nutrition Entrepreneurs has helped me more with how to do media, how to do presentations, how to be more confident, how to negotiate, like these business skills that were not always taught. That can definitely help. And they have a mentorship program. So you can have another dietitian who's more experienced in that area of dietetics. And I do think they do have sports dietitians and a toolkit. So if there's a specific area, learning how to write a book, being an author for a cookbook, learning how to do media, all these different things that are available right at your fingertips, and that DPG. So I really have found much benefit with not only being a member, but also being involved on the board. And I think that's another big thing I try to share with interns and students is not just be a member and go to meetings, but actively be involved. How can you volunteer your time to give back to our profession? Because it's more, you get so much value out of it. It's the relationships you're building, it's the communication, it's just so much that you get out of those volunteering hours.
The hour you volunteer may lead you to get 5 connections, and those 5 connections could be
Exactly.
at 5 different companies, and those 5 different companies could offer a fellowship, a paid internship, a opportunity with talking in front of the mirror, like you said. Like, you don't really know, so
Mhm.
you can pre-assume, you can say, I'm not good enough, they're not going to choose me, or you can have the go-getter attitude and just say, the worst they can say is no. If I do get
Mhm.
the opportunity, this is a new skill that I can now build and develop and add to my toolbox. This is now a new person that I know. Maybe they're in Ohio, maybe they're in Florida, maybe they're in Texas, so they know somebody there. It's just building your network and your branches of your trees, because everybody knows everybody. Even though it's a huge
Yes.
country, it's a very small country, also at the same time. And I like that you really pushed, getting your master's in a different realm. I think that's one big thing I really push a lot of the younger dietitians as they're coming up. Don't spend your money and just go get a master's in nutrition, right?
Mhm.
Get a master's in something that's going to actually complement what you look as your career path or your goal going forward, right?
Mhm.
Is it business? Is it psychology? Is it going to be exercise science or kinesiology? Like, what's something that's going to be able to add to the value of what you do, that's going to add to the value of the next company or business that you are a part of, or the one that you eventually start yourself? Because a lot of dietitians are moving into that entrepreneurial private practice route, whether it's a full-time position or having the opportunity, if you still have a full-time position with somebody, earning some extra income and revenue on the side. And I think the more you can diversify your income stream and your
Mhm.
opportunities there, right? Everybody's goal is to live a certain type of lifestyle or hopefully retire by a certain age. And if you really put the work in when you're younger, then hopefully you have that opportunity to make the right investments and save, so that you can maybe retire at 55, 60 years old, instead of having to retire, at 70 years old, like some people have to do now.
Exactly. Oh, I agree. Yeah. Anytime you can kind of put your hands into so many different things. And also that kind of goes to your interest too. If you're interested in this area, but then also kind of have your hands or volunteering in this area and working in this area, it's just so beneficial to then build those skills and those experiences and those opportunity for growth to push yourself too.
So,
So
so tell us a little bit about, what is the Kentucky Beef Council? What do they provide? What do they offer? How do you help, whether it's practitioners or dietitians in the field? How does that translating over to helping the general population?
yes. And so in my position with Meyer, I worked a lot. We partnered a lot with different brands, including the Kentucky Beef Council. So that was how, again, building that relationship. And so I worked with Allison specifically at the Kentucky Beef Council, has been my main contact for years. And so when I did the consulting, she and invited me to join them in consulting and reaching out. And so we represent, the Kentucky Beef Council represents the 3,800 Kentucky beef farmers. And so Kentucky is the largest beef producing state east of the Mississippi. And I don't think many people know that. And so
You
it's
think Texas?
Texas on the other side.
I know.
But yeah, so I mean, it's like, but having the bluegrass here in the state of Kentucky is just a great. So we're representing these beef farmers, and so really feel like we're getting so many more questions as health professionals, as dietitians. We're expected to know so much about food and nutrition that we're getting these questions about more about where our food is coming from, antibiotics, hormones, grass finished versus grain finished. And so where my role is connecting health professionals, whether that be dietitians, dietetic interns, dietetic students, family physicians, diabetes educators, nurses, pharmacists, did I mention family physicians? So many different health professionals out there where they're interacting with their patients and consumers, to then be able to be a resource or be able to invite them on a farm tour so they can see firsthand and learn more about agriculture, because as we're getting more questions, as we're able to answer their questions with the lens that we've actually seen them on the farm, better equip ourselves with the resources and studies so that we help prevent the fear and confusion, break those myths. And also, I think just know that they know that our food is safe, our new food is well regulated, that we're helping consumers feel more confident when they're shopping. Because there's just so much overwhelm, the labels, all these different things. What does it mean? How can we help our customers, our patients, our clients feel more comfortable as they are purchasing things in the store for themselves and for their families? As a parent, I have a 9-year-old and an almost 7-year-old that, it's important. You want to make healthy choices and good choices. And especially if you have this particular budget you just stick within, how can I get the biggest bang for my buck with nutrition? And with beef, you can do that. And so that's where I really loved this role, being able to connect and build the relationship and open that communication with health professionals in agriculture. Because as dietitians, we work with food, so it makes sense.
That's like in athletics, some, food services push so heavily, and sometimes, athletes don't want to eat this, they don't like that, they don't like this. Well, probably need to put more effort into the food service, how you think about it, how they're cooking it, how they're presenting it, what it looks like, getting to do taste testings, food demos. Like, you need more interactive things around that specific process, so those different populations can actually understand what goes into it. Because a lot of times we take for granted, what's put in front of us at the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we just make an assumption. We say, we don't like this, we don't like that. Oh, that doesn't taste good. It's like, well, do you know like what it took to get from the farm to getting processed, to getting to the grocery store, to getting brought to here, then getting cooked, and then made for X amount of people? Like, if you understood that whole entire process from point A to point Z, you probably would have a little bit more appreciation when it comes to that. And one of the things I did when I was at IMG Academy, there was one semester I brought all my teams into the area where our food was prepared and served. And I had the chef come out. We did kind of a Q&A. He brought them around the whole entire kitchen. He talked about the process. He talked about the amount of food that we made every single day, like X pounds of meat, or we buy whatever tons of bananas, just to give them like a realization of like, you guys are saying these comments, or you feel this certain type of way about the food, but this is what's actually going into it. And we are taking your feedback and we're trying to make changes with it. But like, you have to give a little bit of time. You can't just make that quick decision on whatever it is in that moment until you can take a step back.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting that you kind of mentioned one of the, we took dietitians on a tour of a dairy farm and a beef farm. So Ethan and I worked together with that recently. And so I just wanted to share, kind of to your point, of two of the comments that we received. So kind of some of the takeaways that the dietitians mentioned. So one of them mentioned that they were able to see how well the animals are cared for. So that's helpful to talk to clients and students about this. And another one mentioned just the high standards for both industries in dairy and beef that they're held to for safety and wholesomeness, which will help them with client misconceptions. So again, just being able to, I always encourage health professionals, no matter what if you're invited to a beef farm tour, dairy farm tour, going to citrus groves in Florida, whenever you have an opportunity to get a tour of a farm, I always encourage that, because it's just, you'll be able to see it directly, where not everyone gets to experience that. Then you can be able to share and educate people that way. And also, to your point, one of my favorite handouts, and I don't think I'll send you a link to this, because it's one of my favorite handouts I did, because I feel like it's good for health professionals and also for consumers, is this beef cuts chart. And so there's so much information on this page, because it talks about which ones are lean. It shows you the name of the cut. It also shows you how to prepare. So again, with that confidence, if you're not familiar with that cut, or you don't know if it's lean, and then you buy this particular steak and you don't know how to prepare it, this gives you more of the confidence of how to prepare it. Or you can go to beefitswhatsfordinner.com or to get some more recipes and get some confidence that way. So it's just ways that we can help them to help make good choices and help them in the preparation as well.
And that's big time, whether, if you're at a large university, you do have a chef and you do food demos, or you do them yourself as a dietitian, or if you're doing grocery store tours, right? Because like you could tell somebody, hey, get ground beef, and they're, an athlete or a person that's never cooked in their life. That's probably their first question. What do I do with this? Well, how do I cook it? What spices do I put on it? And
Mm-hmm.
that looked very visual, which I appreciate and a lot of athletes appreciate, because we're transitioning to that visual, simple, easy things that you can say or look at and then apply directly. No one really wants to look at paragraphs of words and have to read a lot nowadays. So the more simplistic that you can make the infographic for the individual, probably the behavior change or putting them in a position where they're able to actually do something with it is going to be a lot more likely.
Yes, I agree. And kind of going back to your point of focusing on lean cuts, but then also what you're pairing it with. So how you can incorporate into a whole meal. It's not just one food, it's how you can incorporate it and get nutrients from not just beef. So you get your zinc and iron and protein, B vitamins, etc. But you can get, your vitamins and minerals from your vegetables paired with it, and your fruits and your whole grains. So having the whole meal approach and sharing that with health professionals and consumers, so choosing a lean product, how are you preparing it? What are you serving it with? Having them all think about that, because beef can be part of your plate and doesn't have to be taken away, because it has such valuable nutrients. For only about the size of a deck of cards, which is about 3 ounces, provides 175 calories for lean beef and so much nutrition. So there's so many benefits of beef, including it as part of your diet.
How do you have a conversation then with the rise in social media, the rise in more individuals trying to go the vegan, the vegetarian, trying to cut out meat? They're listening to these social media entities out there saying, red meat's bad for you. Like, how do you deal with those conversations and situations? Because obviously the information is out there and how nutrient packed beef is. You'd be crazy not to at least try to incorporate it sometime during the week because of the value that it brings.
I agree. That's a good question with regards to how we approach that conversation with people. And even with the plant forward, I definitely agree. Plant forward is great. And that means more fruits and vegetables, but that doesn't mean you need to erase or eliminate beef from your plate. It just means adding more fruits and vegetables, which is great because that pairs really nicely with beef. And I would share research too. We have a Mediterranean and diet-inspired research. So out of Purdue University in 2018, it was published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And they have research with regards to how beneficial it can be to incorporate up to and or as much of 18 ounces of lean unprocessed red meat. So this is pork and beef, as paired with fruits and vegetables, whole grains, low-fat dairy products, can be heart healthy. So I share that research. I also talk about different recipes, again, how they prepare it, what they're serving it with. And then I also share about that there's 65% of the beef cuts in the grocery store are considered lean, and 9 extra lean cuts are certified by the American Heart Association with their heart health check mark. So there are leaner cuts, because I feel like you get questions about, there's no lean beef, there's no lean beef options. And I'm like, no, there's so many actually. And there's so much has changed with how we are, we have a nutritionist that works with the cattle. And so they're looking at the cattle's diets and also the breeding and so many different changes over the years that we've made the product, the beef, leaner. So it's nice that there's that opportunity and that there isn't, there are more leaner choices out there than there were in the past. So I think that's what I educate them on, again, and just what you're serving it with, how you're preparing it, your portion sizes. So we're not having 20 ounces, or you're still sticking to about 3 ounces, but looking at the whole plate overall.
Now you mentioned obviously taking care of the cows, having someone as a nutritionist. when I had Ethan on, he was talking about some of the latest technology that's out there when it comes to milking cows, when it comes to dairy. Is there anything different or new that's transpiring when it comes to processing just beef and cattle in general? Anything that, the AI is coming up with that's coming down the pipeline?
Gosh, I mean, I feel like it goes back to kind of just agriculture in general has gotten better and better. And we can, and just with what we have and the resources that we have, we're able to get more beef out of that than and fewer cattle, if that makes sense. So being able to look at, the breeding, the nutrition, the feeding, the trimming, just being able to have a leaner choice, but still having that marbling, so the white little specks in the steak had that nice flavor, but still being able to remain lean and have that good flavor is they're always looking at that, how they can improve that with the breeding and the nutrition and how they're feeding them and the trimming aspects. So always kind of looking to ways we can make it better and more sustainable too.
Yeah, absolutely. Any way we can streamline, make things more efficient. And the big thing, especially the dairy farmer that we spoke to as well, going back to business and entrepreneurship, is those farmers obviously finding also other revenue streams that they can utilize too. The dairy farmer we went to, he had a creamery. So not only is he selling his milk to, let's say, Kroger or different grocery stores, but you want to get some fresh ice cream or fresh milk or cheese or whatever that is. Well, you can just drive right down 10 minutes from the farm and they have a place right there. And I'm sure you can attest to this too. There is nothing better than when a food product or dairy or beef, whatever it is, comes off the farm and you get to eat it within that next day. Like the flavor and taste is bar none tremendous.
Well, it's so good to hear. I mean, because it's like you can purchase like the dairy, you can purchase right from the local dairy farms, and beef, you can get to know a local farmer and purchase their beef. And also you can purchase beef from your Kroger, your Meijer, your Whole Foods, wherever you want to purchase your items. And no matter where you purchase your beef, whether it be at a local farm or in the grocery store, just know you are supporting our beef farmers. So we appreciate that no matter where you choose your beef. But
Yeah, and a lot of time they're trying to keep it as local as possible from what it seems like in comparison to the state too, right? Like, if you're in Kentucky, I'm sure a lot of the surrounding states, either that state or the state next to you, like that beef's not traveling very far. Like we're trying to keep it close to home as much as we can versus having to travel something all the way across the country, just so the freshness, the nutrition value of it can stay as high as possible.
Yes, that's nice to have so many different options. So it's like, I think that's also important to know is whatever your choice is, if you like the grass finished, if you like the grain finished, if you want to buy a whole cow, like there's options and within anyone's budget. There's options for anybody, whatever you like that way. So I like that too.
So the ultimate question for you to finish this up, what is your favorite cut of beef?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I always go to, so one of, they always mention, like if you're looking for a lean cut, looking for loin or round, I always like sirloin. So it's a lean cut. I know it's going to be a lean cut. I also, oh gosh, I guess go with sirloin. Brisket is always good too.
It's
But
made right, especially barbecue
yeah, well, that's
brisket.
true, exactly. And you really don't need that much. Like you were talking about, like, well, how to prepare it? What seasoning should I use? And maybe a little bit of salt and pepper, but you don't really need much seasoning. If you do need some acid or you don't need something to break it down to help it, I mean, we do have done great recipes at beefit'swhat'sfordinner.com. We do have Mediterranean inspired recipes that follow that research from Purdue University. So. And beef just pairs well with so many different things and get that umami, like mushrooms and beef
Yes.
together, red wine and beef together. It's just, you get that experience, the whole, meal experience.
You're making me hungry right now to make some. But all of the resources, information, links that she described across this podcast, we're going to put those in the show notes. Same with that research article. For you as a practitioner to have that in your back pocket when you're having these conversations or need infographics or any information like that. Her contact information will be down there as well in case you want to connect to get more information. Maybe you get a chance to go on a dairy or a beef farm tour as well. Who knows? I know there's lots of opportunities there. But Janine, awesome. Appreciate all this diverse information that you gave us in regards to the Kentucky Beef Council. And if you guys want any more information or any more of the podcast, just go ahead and hit my bio link. All the information is there in my link tree. Thanks, Janine.
Awesome. Thank you.